Hello there. Welcome into a Monday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the Extra Sports 1300 app to do your listening. And that app is, of course, sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health, and well-being for all. A veritable cornucopia of sports topics leading you up to our coverage of Monday Night Football. The other game, Jets and Dolphins, our coverage from Westwood One begins at 5. I'll take your thoughts on the main attraction in these parts when it comes to Monday Night Football. 719-247-1313. You can call or text into the show. Solomon Wilcots will be my guest coming up in less than 20 minutes to preview tonight's game from mostly the perspective of his Bengals. I just want, more than anything else, to do a little bit of a wellness check. Where are the Bengals' heads at after losing Joe Burrow and then getting absolutely destroyed by the Minnesota Vikings last week? But let's talk about this game from the Broncos' perspective, shall we? And there's a lot of different ways to label games: must wins, get rights, bounce backs, trap games. I found another one that I think pertains to tonight's game, and I have to give the folks at RotoWire some credit. So something hit my inbox today, where RotoWire.com did a calculation of how stressed each NFL fan base is right now. And they took into account how close all their games have been. Have they gone into overtime? Have they turned the ball over, blown leads, injuries, all these things that will, raise the blood pressure a little bit for fan bases. And according to their, I'm sure, very scientific rankings, they had the Broncos at fourth most stressed fan base. You're the fourth most stressed fan base in the NFL right now. The only teams they were behind, Kansas City, San Francisco, and Pittsburgh. Although after yesterday, the updated rankings might be San Francisco 1 and Denver 2. I think Steelers and Chiefs fans are a little bit, well, I can speak with authority on one of them, feeling a little bit easier about things after what happened yesterday. But what it kind of led me to was trying to characterize this game. I think this game is kind of a stress test for the Denver Broncos, but because from a talent perspective, they're a better team than Cincinnati right now without Joe Burrow, right? But there are questions, very stressful questions around this team that are being asked. People are getting impatient with Bo Nix. The team's picking up new injuries. Marvin Mims tonight now questionable after they just got Evan Ingram back. It's a stressful time up there in Denver. I don't think anybody, including those inside the Broncos facility, expected it to look like this through 3 weeks. And if tonight follows a similar script, Bo Nix not making plays when it matters, the mental mistakes, the penalties, constantly being behind the chains to start drives, taking forever to put a touchdown on the board, it's just going to add to the stress level. It's going to go through the roof. They got if the blood pressure collar is around Broncos fans' arms, it's going to pop if this game goes the way that the previous 3 have gone. Only 5 teams since 2020, which is when the playoffs expanded one additional team in each conference, only 5 teams have started a season 1-3 and made the playoff. That's one a year. Think the Broncos are going to be that team? I don't think so. They have to win tonight, which adds to the stress level. It would be one thing if they were just playing an inferior opponent. It's another entirely, given the stakes of this game. The Broncos cannot lose their third straight game. They cannot fall to 1-3. Because three in a row is going to turn into 4-0. Like, let me just get out ahead of Sunday's game. They are going to lose to Philadelphia. You know that as well as I do. So if they lose tonight, you can book 4 straight losses. And I tend to think that the Broncos are going to lose Sunday regardless of how they perform tonight. But if they lose tonight, and now Saturday becomes a must-win, or Sunday becomes a must-win, because now you're on a 3-game losing streak. You started the season 1-3. Now you got to go into the defending Super Bowl champs' house, a team that has just found every different way to win games, going up against the Broncos team that has now, and we'll see if they lose tonight, what creative way they find to lose tonight's game. But it would be a team that has found every different way to win versus a team that has found every different way to lose. Broncos can't handle that kind of stress. They have to lower the temperature. They have to lower the stress level tonight. And I think really that's the only significant thing that can be gained through this game, right? You're not gonna watch the Broncos tonight if they're able to run the football, or Bo Nix is able to hit his deep throws and go, okay, Broncos fixed. You're not gonna feel that way. It's the Bengals without Joe Burrow. But it'll lower your stress level, right? They got to win. We don't have to talk about what math is against the Denver Broncos starting 1-3. And then Sunday against the Eagles just becomes a, hey, we did some good things, got to win on Monday. Let's go into Philadelphia, take a swing, see what happens. So even if the Broncos get kind of run out of the link on Sunday, I don't know if it will bother you. It certainly won't bother Broncos fans the way it has these last 2 weeks have. And look, the Broncos have put themselves in this position, right? The stress that they're under, the pressure that they are feeling is of their own making. It didn't have to be this way. And it's not just that 1-2 feels a lot different than 2-1. It's the way that the Broncos have performed in these games. It's the way that they're playing. Right? That's what it is. Undisciplined, finding different ways to lose, not making big plays, poor play calling, like all of this stuff they brought on themselves. Yeah, the Colts might be for real. Yeah, the Chargers are the Chargers. It's not the result, it's how they got there. And that's a core tenet, I believe. It's not if you lose, it's how you lose. How the Broncos have lost has raised the stress level, has put more pressure on them. And tonight, it was supposed to be kind of a just a showcase game, almost a measuring stick, right? You're going up against the Bengals. Both teams kind of in the same position they were last year in terms of, where they might finish up, and maybe it would have implications down the road, but it would just be, okay, let's see how the Broncos perform on a national stage against another team kind of in their same realm. Well, now, because of the way things have gone, they have to win, and they have to look good doing it. I don't even know that scraping by, doing a lot of the same things they've done the last 3 weeks is going to be acceptable, even in a win. And Cincinnati's kind of dangerous in this spot. Like, I'll just put it out there, I think that the Broncos are going to win, but the Bengals are a dangerous team. They got beat 48-10 last week. They hit rock bottom. That's their rock bottom game. I don't think the Broncos have hit rock bottom. I think tonight they could if they lose. A month into the season, this team may hit rock bottom. It reminds me of Sean Payton's first year where they got beat by Miami 70-20. The difference, though, is that there's so much more expected out of this team. The Broncos, when they got beat 70-20, a lot of people were like, okay, we're done here. Whatever. The attention wasn't on. The attention's going to stay on this Broncos team, even if they lose tonight. More criticism, more questioning, because this is a team that's supposed to accomplish much more than anybody thought Sean Payton's first Broncos team was supposed to. So I think Cincinnati's coming, and I'll ask Solomon Wilcots this question in the next segment. I feel like the Bengals are coming in with nothing to lose. They were embarrassed last week. A lot of people are writing them off because they don't have Joe Burrow. What's the Broncos' excuse? They don't have one. Which just adds to the stress and the pressure. But win tonight, look decent doing it. I'm not saying you got to beat the Bengals by 40. But how about establishing the identity that Sean Payton says they haven't been able to establish yet? How about doing that? Let's find out what if the Broncos have their way, what do they look like? What do they want to do? Let's find that out. How about the Broncos get a touchdown before their fifth or sixth drive, which has been pretty much the way they've been with Bo Nix. 5 drives, 6 drives before they score a touchdown. They got to start off faster than that. Because this is where the crowd turns against them, right? I think it's going to be a hyped up crowd, primetime game, a lot of stress building up that fans kind of want to get out. The first 3 and out that the Broncos offense has, I promise you there will be boos. You will be able to hear them through the television set. They're coming in tonight expecting a good, entertaining night of football where the home team comes away with the win. The minute that looks like it's not according to plan, that stadium is going to turn. And the Broncos can't have that. They have not been a team that has shown over the last couple of years that they can deal with that kind of stuff. It just looks like it gets worse. So, got to start fast, get a touchdown on the board early by any means necessary. It wouldn't shock me if the Broncos, who are known for deferring, decide to take the opening kick. If they do indeed win the toss. But start fast, show some of this identity we've been hearing about. And lead from the front here. Make the Bengals chase you all evening. Get a win. It's not going to completely change the perspective of this season. All's not going to be right with the world. But you won't have some of these same questions, and you certainly won't be going into a matchup with Philadelphia with even more pressure on you to win, because the Broncos cannot survive a 4-game losing streak even at this juncture of the season. So a potential de-stressor. That's what tonight represents to me. What does it represent to you? 719-247-1313. Coming up next, where's the stress level with the Cincinnati Bengals? I'll ask Solomon Wilcots after this on Extra Sports 1300. Broncos and Bengals coming up tonight, one of two Monday night football games. Joining me now is a member of the Bengals' 40th anniversary team. He talks about the team on a regular basis on Believe in Bengals, as well as talks about the entire league. One of my favorite shows to listen to on the way into work is when Solomon is hosting on NFL radio. And most importantly, he's a buff. He's Solomon Wilcots, and he joins me now. Solomon, pleasure to have you. How are you?
Brian, hey, I'm doing great, and good to be on with you today. Thank you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So let me start with kind of a well check. Where are the Bengals at mentally right now after the injury to Burrow and the loss to Minnesota?
Well, they're searching, right? They feel good about the record at 2-1 coming into tonight's game. Improve their offensive production. You remember last week against Minneapolis, against the Vikings anyway, the turnover rate was just, they beat themselves, turning the ball over. They were not productive. Jake Browning has thrown 5 interceptions over the last 2 games. But the turnovers killed them. They're not protecting the quarterback. And right now they have the worst rushing attack of any team in the NFL, averaging 2.4 yards per carry. So there are a lot of things they have to clean up, things they have to get fixed, particularly on the offensive side of the ball in the absence of Joe Burrow.
How long until the noise gets really loud about this team needing to do something at the quarterback position to make sure that there's something for Joe Burrow to come back and play for with Cincinnati?
Yeah, I think the realization here is knowing the ownership group, knowing how much money they spent on Joe Burrow, knowing how much money they spent on Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And remember, if you go back 2 years ago, when Jake Browning started the final 7 games of the season, he was 4-3 in those games. He led the NFL with a 70% completion rate. They signed him to a new contract after that season, excuse me. They feel like, I think this team feel like they've already has spent the money to have what they call an insurance policy should Joe Burrow go down. And you and I both know teams do have a salary cap, Ryan. These teams don't have, endless budget. They do when it comes to coaches. They do when it comes to front office members. But when it comes to players, there's a limited budget. And the Bengals are a prudent team. I don't think they're going to sacrifice the future for the present. That's just not who they are.
Solomon Wilcott's my guest. What is going on with the Bengals running game? Because I think a lot of people like Chase Brown, at least in fantasy.
Yeah. Well, if you looked at it, I just think that their run game lacks creativity. All their runs come out of shotgun, for instance. Anytime you put a running back standing next to a quarterback in shotgun, there's only so much you could do. You really limit the kind of blocking you can do. You see a lot of zone blocking up front, inside, outside zone. That's about the extent of the Bengals run game. When you put the quarterback under center, and then you can do more pin and pulls, you can have more duo attacks on your interior guys. You can attack certain areas, and then you have the greater deception of run, play fake, run action, and throw off of it. There's so many more things you can do when you put the quarterback under center, because defensive linemen now have to wait for the quarterback to clear the runner. That's why ball faking and things of that nature are very important for quarterbacks to carry those things out, even if it's play action pass. But the Bengals element in terms of what they've always done is shotgun, hand the ball to the running back who's standing next to the quarterback, and then kind of have zone, inside or outside zone. It lacks creativity. It doesn't allow the offensive lineman to tee off coming downhill. And if you go back to the 49ers who put the quarterback under center, a lot of your West Coast systems, they do that. And that's because the passing game is coordinated with the run game. The footwork of the quarterback 3-step, 5-step, 7-step drop away from the center. The timing of the routes with the wide receivers are even synced up with the quarterback. And the run game is coordinated as part of that. And that's why the 49ers have always been very good at running the ball, because they're very intentional at doing it. And the pass comes off of that run. The Bengals have always been a pass-first team. And so now when it's time to run to help protect the quarterback or try to morph into something a little bit different, I think it's been difficult for them to do that.
Solomon Wilcott's Believe in Bengals joining me here on Drive Time Sports. I'm curious from obviously you cover the entire NFL. What's been your take on the Denver Broncos through 3 weeks?
Well, look, we all know that Bo Nix has not played at his best during the first month of the season. When the opportunities that presented itself for him to take advantage of big strikes down the field, something he was very good at last year, by the way. He was one of the more accurate and more consistent quarterbacks when it came to taking shots down the field. And outside of Cortland Sutton, I don't know that they're getting the kind of production that they're looking for in terms of getting the separation and where they can really take advantage of those opportunities. And so what they're doing is, look, I think they came up short against Indianapolis, but I thought they played well enough to win that game, right? And so this is a team that's not going to panic just yet. They still have one of the best defenses in the National Football League. And I think they have to play to their strengths. They can run the ball. I still think they have the assets to be able to do that. And so while they're sitting here 1-2, it's not time to panic. This is a game that no Joe Burrow in this one, right? They expect to win this one. You and I both know that. So they should, if they don't come out of this one 2-2, then I do think it's going to be time to worry. But I think you have to let it play out first.
If you're Al Golden, how do you go after Bo Nix in this offense?
Look, I think you have to be able to force him off his spot. You can't let him throw in rhythm and in phase when he wants to throw it. You've got to hurry up his process, make him feel the trash around his feet, make him have to move off his spot. You let quarterbacks get in rhythm in this league, and Bo Nix is one of those players. If you let him get into his rhythm and throw it when he's comfortable and when he is best suited to throw it, he's going to pick you apart. He's going to make the throws necessary to beat you. The thing about where they're at in the phase of their organization, in the phase of their program, is that they want to lean on the run game, and then they want to hit play action shots down the field, and they want their defense to come up with turnovers and put the offense on a short field and convert those possessions into points. It's more complementary football. This is not a team or an offense where they're letting Bo Nix be the Pat Mahomes of the offense, or the Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen. You and I both know that's not where they're at. How they would hope to get there, maybe year 3, year 4 of their quarterback's tenure. But right now, it's about an integrated process with offense being built around the run game, and then taking shots with those play action pass looks, and be able to be strong on defense, keep the score down. And if they're scoring anywhere over 25 points a game, they expect to be able to win those contests. They're not ready to go win shootouts and score 30-plus points each and every week.
Well, and they didn't end up being able to against the Bengals last year, which leads me into my next question about how early and often do they target T. Higgins if Riley Moss is on him?
You remember that game well.
We do remember it very well around here, Solomon.
And Ryan, I think you raised a really good point, because you could tell it was on their minds when they went into the draft, right? They went not only in free agency, adding guys like Dre Greenlaw, who I know is injured and banged up, but Talanoa Hufanga, and then in the draft to get Jahdae Barron, a real talented player of the University of Texas. They wanted to add to the secondary so that they could match up against teams who have 2 number ones, right? You have many teams who have 2 number 1 receivers that, Patrick Surtain's good enough to take one away. What about the other guy, right? Now you got to double that guy. They wanted to double. And you can't hold up. He's going to eat you. So the Bengals have two number ones. There is no doubt about it. I think they're better prepared to match up with a Jahdae Barron. And look, I think Riley Moss had been hurt. He had played better early in the season. He was coming off games where he had missed. His technique wasn't where it had been, I think, at the early part of the season. And it was just not his day. Sometimes you get the bear, sometimes the bear gets you. I like Riley Moss. I think he's a good player. But let's face it, they went and got an insurance policy in Jahdae Barron. Let's see how that holds up.
How much Buffs football are you watching these days, Solomon?
I don't get to watch much. In fact, I missed the game late Saturday night. And I hope we did better than we did in the bowl game. Let's just say that.
Well, it was a day. Yes, I would say the margin of defeat was better than it was in the Alamo Bowl. I can certainly say that. I mean, it's such a different world that Deion Sanders is trying to build in. I just wonder what this ceiling looks like. What can this Buffs program be under Deion Sanders? And I think he'd be the first to say they're not even close to it right now. But I'm just curious what that looks like and if they can get there, given the world of college sports that currently exists.
It's different, and you're right, because when you live in the world of free agency and sort of, it's like mercenaries, right? You're hiring mercs. We all know, and anyone who's ever studied war, that whenever you have an army full of conscripts, right, they're not as loyal. If the fight gets too thick, they may flee, and they go to the highest bidder. And you and I both know that you need people who have more at stake. And that's what college football is looking for. They're looking the programs that still have a fiber and a culture where people want to be there for other than what the NIL deal looks like. Mm-hmm. And that's what Boulder used to be. It's a special place. It's a gorgeous campus, beautiful facilities. It should be a school where anybody would want to go to and want to play at and want to stay, right? But guess what? All the universities are being tasked with how do you get them, how do you keep them? And if you're always enlisting conscripts, if it's always about the NIL deal, and if it's not, hey, I'm here for the sake of CU. I want to be part of this program. I want to come back 20, 30 years from now and see my name on that wall when I bring my kids and my family back to show what we built here. When you have those kind of players, when you have that kind of mentality, that's when you're building something. Everything else is just temporary, and everything else is really tough to be consistent at winning. You might win one game here, 1 year here, but it's going to be tough to build something that's more consistent. And I know that's what Coach Prime is really working to do.
Well, Solomon Wilcots is absolutely a Buff through and through, the very thing that Deion Sanders is looking for. Solomon was up in Boulder, and appreciate you taking the time, Solomon, to join me and share some of your insight. And again, I'm a fan. I enjoy listening to you on NFL radio when I'm driving in the morning. Keep up the good work, and I look forward to the next time you and I get a chat.
All right. You do the same, Ryan. Always great to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much, Solomon. That is the one and only Solomon Wilcots joining me here on Drive Time Sports. Always appreciative. He's been on the show multiple times, and he's always so generous with that time that he gives. That actually, let's use that as a jumping off point, because I do want to get into the Buffs against BYU, and I do want to get into what's going on with the other two bigger college football programs in the state of Colorado, because to me, it looks like more of the same from all three of them. Let's talk about that next here on Extra Sports 1300. The latest national keyword for the 5K a day, your chance to win $1,000. It is Rich, RICH. Text that number to 95819. We're giving away $1,000 5 times a day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. So be listening all day for those national keywords and text them to 95819. The latest is Rich, RICH, to 95819. Also of note, our latest nominees for our Extra Sports Athlete of the Week have been revealed. They have been up all day for your vote. They are Landry Roberts of Cheyenne Mountain Volleyball, Jackson Mabe from Palmer Ridge Football, Taylor McCann of Discovery Canyon Softball, and Nathan Leduc with some love for tennis, a Terre tennis player. So if you want to go to extrasports1300.com and cast your vote, feel free. Bailey Williams, our reigning athlete of the week. Air Academy has a big softball game today, so she was going to join me tomorrow on the show, and looking forward to that. So jumping off of where I left off with Solomon Wilcots on the Colorado Buffaloes, I felt like this entire weekend of college football for the 3 teams that we talk about, right? CU, CSU, Air Force. More of the same, and that's not great. Let's start with CU. I called that game a season-saving game if CU could get it. And, of course, they weren't able to. And the head coach of BYU, Kalani Sitake, was asked after the game, after BYU won, and the question that was posed to him was, you guys got hit in the mouth early on. How were you able to respond? And then Sitake went on to take that metaphor and extend it. And he's like, in the championship rounds, we dragged them out into the deep water. In the championship rounds, we knew that we were going to be able to get it done. And he's not, trying to slander or badmouth the Buffs. He was just saying who my team is. I know that my team can win in those championship rounds, but I'll take that and flip it to the Buffs. Are they capable of that? What I saw from the Colorado Buffaloes was a team that could script out a good game plan, right? They looked really good out of the gate. And then the script runs out, you're out of plays, you're having to react to what's going on in the game, the situations, the successes that you're having, the failures that you're having, the adjustments. And I just don't see a coaching staff. And this is, again, not a new phenomenon. I don't see a coaching staff that makes adjustments, that can react to what is going on, adjust, and close out the rest of the game, play the rest of the game. It's they go in with their plan, and not every week is a good. I thought it was a good plan against BYU. It was successful. And then BYU adjusted. Buffs couldn't. And it was like the Houston game. BYU's like, wow, you went down the field, you scored a couple of times. All right, we just won't let you have the ball back. Time of possession, again, in Big 12 play was a major issue for the Colorado Buffaloes. Their defense couldn't get off the field. That third down, what was it, 3rd and 17, where Bachmeier was able to run and get 16 yards. They converted the ensuing fourth down and stayed on the field. This coaching staff they can't adjust. It's like everything has to go right, and if anything goes wrong, then that's it. And any adjustments they do make or look panicky, like switching quarterbacks mid-game. This is just, and it's one of the questions I had about Deion Sanders even coming into Boulder. You know, when you don't have the best player or two on the field, you got to make up for it. And this was going to be a year where the Colorado Buffaloes, maybe from an overall roster standpoint, were better than a previous version of themselves, but they didn't have that top-line talent. They couldn't walk into matchups this year saying we got the best player on the football field. We got the best two players on the football field. And when that's the case, got to kind of coach them up a little bit. You got to help out your team, and I don't think that Deion Sanders and his coaching staff can. And now you look at it, I mean, to say nothing of when will this team figure it out, it may be too late by the time they do that. I mean, it looked like two different teams out there. The Buffs on script at the beginning of the game, coming out with their game plan, and it was a much different team as the game played out. And as BYU was able to make adjustments, the Buffs couldn't. And it's been a pattern. It's been something that's gone on so far this season. And then you extend that out. You look at CSU. So much for that initial bump they got with Jackson Brousseau. You kind of wondered, all right, was this a momentary thing? Was this just in that game? You know, Jesse Kurtz was on the show on Friday, and we were talking about this, and he said it just gave the Rams relief. Like, hey, we're trying something different. We're doing something here. Well, that doesn't last forever. And apparently it lasted even shorter than you might have expected because it was right back to regular schedule programming. You couldn't tell the difference if it was Jackson Brousseau or Braden Fowler Nicolosi. And every game that goes by, I still look, there's the border war, but at what point is even beating Wyoming not enough? And we're getting closer and closer, and we won't know until that game actually plays out when it comes to Jay Norvell's job security. It's not working. And was Jackson Brousseau the last card they could play? So it was back to an anemic Rams offense, and the reverse is true for Air Force. Right now, Pro Football Focus has Liam Zarka as the top-rated quarterback in the Mountain West Conference. When is the last time we could look at an Air Force quarterback and say he's playing the best football of any quarterback in the Mountain West? Well, you Pro Football Focus, not the be-all, end-all, but here's one metric saying that Air Force has the best quarterback in the conference. And the numbers he has put up, we just haven't seen Air Force quarterbacks do this kind of thing. But the defense just can't stop anybody. And the inexperience, it reminds me of like the offensive line last year, like just a young group, inexperienced, and they just don't have enough snaps under their belt for the light bulb to come on. Everything Liam Zarka was doing and that offense was doing, it's like, great, but you give the ball back to Hawaii and it's like, well, they're going to go down and score. So in Fort Collins, it's the offense that's the issue. Here in Colorado Springs, it's the defense. And it's squandering these unbelievable performances from Liam Zarka in the offense. They've been amazing. And now you're going into one of the two most important weeks of your season. On a losing streak, 0-3 in Mount West play, which doesn't have much to do with the Commander-in-Chief's trophy, but morale, the overall feeling going into the Navy game. And by the way, Navy's better than Hawaii. Got to get that. Got to figure out some things on defense. The defense has got to be better because it's been abundantly clear. No matter how good the Air Force offense is, no matter how prolific, can't stop anybody. It's not going to matter. And that's been the theme of the last few weeks for Air Force. So unfortunately for all three teams locally, more of the same. Thought maybe things were turning. Caden Salter's play against Wyoming. The lift that the Rams got with Jackson Brousseau. Nope. I don't want to say fraudulent, but maybe a little bit of fool's gold. Maybe just a matter of it being a situation conducive to success, but not something that's sustainable. So tough weekend on the college football front. All the more reason why the pro football team of record in this state needs to come out with a really good performance tonight. 719-24-7, 1313. More Drive Time Sports after this. Welcome in hour 2 on this Monday, counting you down to Monday Night Football. We got the Jets and Dolphins here on the station starting at 5 p.m. But the primary topic of conversation is the other Monday Night Football game tonight. And for that, love to get your thoughts at 719-247-1313. You could call or text them into the show. The most up-to-the-minute information, the Broncos haven't been able to go out on the field to warm up because of a lightning delay. Now, Mike Kliss of 9 News in Denver is reporting that there's still hope that they'll start the game on time, but it's delaying the ability for the Denver Broncos to get out on the field and get warmed up. Bengals too, just for the record. But that also delays us seeing if Marvin Mims is going to play. Marvin Mims suffering an injury at practice and has been listed as questionable. The Broncos have brought up a linebacker from the practice squad, the only elevation. So everyone's kind of waiting to see if Marvin Mims comes out there, warms up, how he looks. Now, normally it wouldn't be, well, I shouldn't say it wouldn't be a big deal because the Broncos are trying to figure out what they have behind Courtland Sutton, right? Can they get a consistent second option in the passing game going? So Marvin Mims being unavailable or being banged up or hampered or whatever would certainly go to that. But last year against the Cincinnati Bengals, he was the most prolific player on the Denver Broncos. Last year, he had 8 catches for 103 yards and 2 touchdowns. That was a Marvin Mims game. So the thought going in was, hey, Marvin Mims can do it again. Now, even if he does play, with his game being his speed, is he going to be hampered by that? Is he going to be able to be as productive? Sean Payton said yesterday that they certainly have some plays with Marvin Mims's name on them.
We have, packages where we have tags where he's in there. And so a lot of it just, when you have 48 plays in a game, you don't get to 2/3 of your offense. So, yes.
So if he plays, I'm sure they'll be looking for him. But can you expect quite the game that he had against Cincinnati last year? Guess it all depends on how he looks with this injury. But you look at last year's matchup. It's not just Joe Burrow that's, or Jake Browning, I should say, that's going to be different. Jaleel McLaughlin has not been elevated from we don't know if he's going to play or anything like that. And if Mims is hampered and if McLaughlin doesn't play, those are your 2 best offensive players outside of Bo Nix from last year's game. In fact, I did the math. It's very difficult for me. 15 of the 24 receptions from last year's game, if Marvin Mims didn't play, would be missing when you also account for the players that are no longer on the Denver Broncos. 15 of 24 receptions, 20 of the 27 rushing attempts. So, yeah, there are players that you feel like you can plug into those spots. But I think my point is that I don't know how much you can take from last year's game and apply it to this one. Even in the most pain point for Broncos fans, you're probably a little bit worried about Riley Moss going up against T. Higgins. Well, Solomon Wilcots, who joined me last hour, said, Riley Moss just coming off of an injury in that game. So I don't know how much of last year really applies to this year. This guy had a good game. This guy didn't have a good game. Now, Solomon also made another point that the Bengals have 2 number 1 wide receivers. Do the Broncos have 2 number 1 corners? Absolutely not. So T. Higgins is still a problem for the Denver Broncos. And now, can Riley Moss hold up better than he did last year? I think it's reasonable to think he would. But the fact of the matter is T. Higgins is another number 1 wide receiver, and Riley Moss is not another number 1 corner. So that is a big pain point for this Denver Broncos team. Somewhat mitigated by the fact that even if you believe Jake Browning's going to be better than he was against Minnesota, and I don't know how he can be worse, he's still not Joe Burrow. So I don't know how much of last year's game you take into this one. I think you just have to look at it as these two teams probably on the same level. And what separates them? What ultimately decides this game? Well, I think one player that tonight needs to have an impact is Evan Ingram. Here's Sean Payton on his tight end.
There are certainly matchups. Third down, red zone come to mind. But I think it's, with him on the field, we're a better offense.
Better offense, just finishing that one out. Now, I said this last week. The whole Joker thing where you line them up and you create other matchup problems, like there's a time for that. I think the more pressing need of the Denver Broncos right now, just find somebody other than Cortland Sutton that can consistently catch the ball. Like, just do that. So I think Ingram, I know that the Joker role is as much about setting up other people for success than Evan Ingram having success. I think tonight it's about Evan Ingram having success. I think the importance of this game, where the Denver Broncos are, the issues that they've had, they just need to have somebody to not make this offense lopsided in the passing game. And it doesn't have to be Ingram. I just think that that's a natural place you could go. With Marvin Mims being, we think, less than 100%. I think tonight would be a night, especially not having Ingram last week. Give him the ball. Give him the ball tonight. I think that will be important for the Denver Broncos. But I think the key to this game, more than who helps them start fast, is another question. They have to start fast tonight. They cannot go a quarter and a half, 5, 6 drives without getting in the end zone, and they shouldn't. Right? I would think that the Bengals offense would be better than it was a week ago. I don't know that this defense is any better than it was last year. Shamar Stewart's out for them. It should not take the Broncos a quarter and a half to get a touchdown. I'm not talking field goals. Field goals aren't going to do anyone any good. This team must start fast because this is a crowd that will turn on the Denver Broncos their first 3 and out. You can bet on it. First 3 and out, you will hear boos. And even Sean Payton understands on this kind of a stage, the primetime stage, that starting fast is very important.
We talked about playing at home, obviously, and then, playing a national TV game. That's important. So I think it's something that, these players understand, generationally. But we'll have it's important we start fast. We'll have a good crowd behind us, and we should take advantage of that.
They should. given the way they've looked through 3 weeks, there is a little bit of a question whether they will, but they should. It would be in their best interest. Outside of the issues that the Denver Broncos are having, a fast start, I wonder how Cincinnati would react. I mean, Cincinnati has said all the right things after that debacle against Minnesota. It's one game, it's early, all this kind of stuff. They've gone through all the textbook responses that you have after a game like that. The psyche of this team is fragile. It has to be. Jake Browning has looked terrible since Joe Burrow got hurt. Last week was an embarrassment for them. This is a primetime stage. If the Broncos come out at home and get a touchdown on the board early, I wonder if the Bengals are just mentally going to be like, okay, that's it for us. I think it's possible. But if the Broncos don't find the end zone quickly, then it's that old, you let a team hang around, a team that maybe doesn't have a lot of confidence, and you're breathing confidence into them. You're giving them confidence. And that confidence grows and grows the longer the game goes on, where you don't stomp them out. And most games are decided by a score, 10 points. Most games are. I'm just talking about if the Broncos can get out on the front foot, if they can put the Bengals behind early by scoring a touchdown, not by kicking field goals. I don't know if Cincinnati has it in them to turn the momentum, given their personnel, but also given where they are mentally right now. So if the Broncos can get a touchdown early, I think that's a big key for them. Who that person is that catches or scores the early touchdown could be Sutton. I think Evan Ingram is one to watch tonight. Maybe Marvin Mims is good to go. Can't wait. The crowd doesn't want to wait to celebrate the Broncos' first touchdown. And the longer you mess around, the longer you play with your food and have some of the same mistakes that you've had the first 3 weeks of the season, the more Cincinnati feels like they got a shot. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on tonight's game. Coming up next, let's talk a little golf. Ryder Cup. Why the final score in the end really didn't matter. And the latest national keyword for the 5K a day is wage, W-A-G-E. If you text that to 95819, you'll get a bounce back confirming your entry. And then you'll know that you're entered to win $1,000, something we're doing all day long, 5 days a week. It's the 5K a day here on Extra Sports 1300. Update from Denver. They are hoping to start pregame warmups in about 10 minutes. That would keep the game on track to kick off at 6:15 as scheduled. But the more pressing issue, or the more immediate concern, would be, how does Marvin Mims look? He is listed as questionable for this game. And will he be available to the Denver Broncos? And that would certainly add to the stress level for Broncos. 1 in, 1 out. Evan Ingram comes back. Marvin Mims goes out. You don't get healthier as the season goes on. That is a core truth of the National Football League. So keep you updated on that. Oh, let's talk a little golf here. I was locked into all 3 days of the Ryder Cup. This was an embarrassing weekend for Americans. And I say Americans and not the American team, because of some of the extracurriculars that were going on at Bethpage. Now, you could give credit to the United States for making Sunday watchable. You can give them credit for fighting back. But you knew after Saturday they were cooked. There's no way. And doesn't that right there, doesn't that kind of say something not super complimentary of the U.S.? That the time that they actually look to be a match for the Europeans is when it's too late. They would have had to win every single match yesterday. There's no way that was going to happen. It was a matter of when, not if, Europe was going to close that thing out. And because of that, the final score actually doesn't tell the story. They're like, oh, the U.S. only lost by 2. No, they got crushed. They got absolutely crushed by Europe. And the frustrating part of it, more than anything else, is how this team was captained. Because after Friday, the need was there for Keegan Bradley to change things up. Keegan Bradley, after Friday, had one of the most used excuses. I use this excuse when I'm talking to somebody about the round I shoot over the weekend. Just didn't make putts. Just got to make some putts. That's all I need. That's what Keegan Bradley sat up there and said. We just didn't make putts. It is such a cop-out. Every golfer talks about how they need to make putts. Were they going to do it? And were they going to do it by essentially running it back? Friday was really bad. And Keegan Bradley looked at the performance on Friday and went, yep, let's double down on this. He called it, he was like, oh, it's just the end of the first quarter. Not to split hairs, but doing the math, it's closer to halftime after Friday. But be that as it may. If we're going to talk about another sport and compare the Ryder Cup to another sport, basketball or football, most teams make adjustments after the first quarter at halftime. So by invoking that different sport, it actually made Keegan Bradley look a little bit more asleep at the wheel than he already did, because where were the adjustments? How could you possibly justify putting Colin Morikawa and Harris English back out there the next day? Now, they were given a little bit of a gift by Europe, because I don't know why, given the position that they were in after day one, why they didn't start Saturday off with Rory and Fleetwood and just land a knockout punch. To me, you wasted your most unbeatable duo by putting them out there third. Like, no, you start the day with them. And if you don't want to start the day with them, you end the session with them. You make them the anchor. To put them in the middle, I didn't understand that. But the fact of the matter is, it didn't matter what duo Morikawa and English were going to go up against. That was an absolute loss going into it. You had to mark that down as a loss. And not to be too results oriented. There's not one, and Keegan Bradley couldn't justify it. He couldn't. What's the easiest way for coaches to justify what they do? The analytics told me. The analytics said you absolutely cannot have those two players together, that they were the worst two players to pair together that you could possibly do. They were the worst combination. Literally any other combination would have been better than that. And Keegan Bradley had the analytics, had the eyeball test, and went, yep, let's do it again. And now, was there a combination that would actually be able to beat Rory and Tommy Fleetwood? No, probably not. But part of the reason why you make changes is to try and spark something in your team. It's a way to signal this isn't working. It holds the guys accountable and says, we got to change some things up because you didn't live up to your end of the bargain. We see it in all sports all the time. And they don't always work. It doesn't always work. But you're doing it for a purpose. You're doing it to try and change things up. You know, that old definition of insanity. You're not trying to follow that. You got crushed on day one. To essentially go back to the same combinations, to the same players. I get it. You have a limited, but you can mix and match them differently. You didn't. Already, that was a signal. How could you expect anything on Saturday to be better? I mean, after Friday, I was like, man, Keegan Bradley, it's probably good that he's not playing because he's got a lot of big lineup decisions to make. And then once the pairings, the pairings came down for Saturday, I was like, how would this be any different if he was playing? Because my worry would be if he's playing, he would be so caught up in his own game that he wouldn't be able to evaluate the rest of the team and find some better combinations. Well, given what he came out with on Saturday, it's like, what would have been different? Just came right back with essentially the same lineup. So he could have played and still done that level of captaining. So I think from that standpoint, after once once the pairings were announced for Saturday, I was like, this is a wrap. I mean, I was already kind of leaning in that direction. But it's like, well, if Keegan Bradley isn't going to change some things up to try and spark this team, then what hope do they have to come back? And I think the fans were kind of feeling that at Bethpage. The despair, the idea that it just wasn't going to happen, and it fed into some of the behavior. Not to justify it. It's not justifiable. But I could imagine being a fan there at Bethpage, watching Friday, coming back Saturday, and it looking very much the same and getting quite frustrated with it. But that still doesn't justify the other embarrassing part of this weekend, which was the way the fans behaved, especially towards Rory McIlroy.
Golf should be held to a higher standard than what was seen out there this week. Golf has the ability to unite people. Golf teaches you very good life lessons. It teaches you etiquette. It teaches you how to play by the rules. It teaches you how to respect people. And, sometimes this week we didn't see that. So, no, this should not be what is acceptable in the Ryder Cup. But, we will be making sure to say to our fans in Ireland in 2027 that, what happened here this week is not acceptable. And it's, for me, it's, come and support your home team. Come and support your team. I think if I was an American, I would be annoyed that I didn't hear a lot of shouts for Scotty today, but I heard a lot of shouts against me. And it's like, support your players.
Here's the thing, and I agree with everything Rory is saying. What was there to support? You know what I mean? Like, Keegan Bradley ran it back on day 2. There wasn't a lot of players other than maybe Cam Young that was really, and Bryson on Sunday with the way he came back, was really inspiring the fans to root for the U.S. And that's kind of the fan psychology, man. If your team isn't giving you much to cheer about, what do? You don't want to keep banging your head against a wall and cheering for a lost cause. So you turn. It's not our best quality as fans, but you start to turn against the other team and focus more of your, like, if Keegan Bradley's not going to do anything to change this, maybe I will by yelling at Rory McIlroy. But again, it doesn't justify it. I want to be clear with that. And I don't even want to go too highfalutin with what golf means. Like, Rory was a little bit over the top there. Like, this is the Ryder Cup. It's supposed to be a different atmosphere. There's supposed to be more jeers. Like, he did come across a little like Shooter McGavin in that moment. But the things that were, this wasn't guys shotgunning beer and having Scheffler painted across their chest. They were throwing things. They were shouting obscenities. Like, Rory's right. And that's what also made this weekend embarrassing. You don't have to conduct yourself like a country club gentleman. But I mean, that the behavior that you heard about or heard or saw at Bethpage wouldn't be acceptable in an NFL game or an NBA game. And it's like the NBA. We hear these instances of fans getting into it with players because they're right there. Same thing in the gallery. You're right there. They can hear you. You're not drowned out by tens of thousands of people. It was embarrassing. But the frustration level from the fans there cheering on the Americans was high because their team gave them very little to cheer for. Now, the fan behavior, I wasn't expecting to really talk about that going in, or even after Friday. It just got worse and worse throughout the weekend. But if we can get back to the golf here for just a moment, I needed to say that it has to be said about the way that the fans conducted themselves at Bethpage. But as far as the competition itself, as far as the golf goes, it reminds me so much of the conversations you and I have when it comes to NBA culture. The way our athletes, American basketball players, operate in the NBA as opposed to Jokic and Doncic and these European players, it reminds me of what I saw at the Ryder Cup. You know, Tiger was never particularly good in the Ryder Cup. The game's best player by a mile right now is Scottie Scheffler, and you wouldn't know it watching him this weekend. And it's not that everyone was out for themselves. I do think there was the camaraderie there with the team, but it just, in the NBA and in golf right now, it just doesn't seem like American athletes are well suited for the ultimate team competition. And I listened to the post-match press conference from the Europeans, and they're talking about how everyone's interchangeable and everyone has their backs. And the captain was saying, I could have thrown out any combination and felt great about it. I don't know if Keegan Bradley could have had that same confidence. Now, it doesn't justify not making changes. Like, you got to try. But I wonder if somewhere in Keegan Bradley's head, he's like, man, I can't put these two guys together. These guys don't work. This combination's not going to get it done. It's like, it's a different culture. And I think it's a better culture, quite frankly. In both the NBA, it's so individualistic that they can't even, like, it doesn't even seem like Scottie Scheffler can operate with the teammate. And Scottie Scheffler's a good dude. This is not impugning their character, but it's just about how they're, I guess, raised in American golf. The culture that is in American golf as opposed to European golf. And something that's got to change up. I don't know that Europe should be that much better with how popular the sport is and the generation of golfer that was brought forth by Tiger Woods, that was inspired by Tiger Woods. Yeah, Europe played that much better than the U.S., but should they really be that much more talented? I don't think so. And I think the team aspect of the Ryder Cup suits the Europeans right now, and it doesn't suit the Americans. And now in 2 years, it goes back to Europe. And I'll just throw it out there 2 years in advance. I don't like the Americans' chances in Ireland. We have incredibly talented golfers in the U.S. The best player in the world by a mile is American. But this team thing doesn't work, and it fits hand in glove with the way that the European golfers operate. 719-24-7-1313, your Ryder Cup takeaways. Embarrassing. Just all around. Just embarrassing effort, embarrassing captaining, embarrassing fan behavior, just really bad. We'll take a break and have more Drive Time Sports after this. Want to get you that national keyword for the 5K a day one more time before we part ways. It is WAGE, WAGE. Text that to 95819 and you could win $1,000 with the 5K a day. We're doing it 5 days a week, all day long. Be listening for your cue to text with those national keywords for your chance to win $1,000. Jaleel McLaughlin, leading rusher for the Denver Broncos last year against the Bengals, inactive again. Sean Payton was asked about McLaughlin. Said he's doing well, which is his way of skirting the question, and said we evaluate that every week on who to dress and who not to. Apparently, they decided no Jaleel McLaughlin tonight, so the Broncos will have to lean on another running back, which they were going to anyway, but it's worth noting how well Jaleel McLaughlin played against Cincinnati. If there was anything to that matchup, you would think, hey, let's dress him and give him. If there's any game for Jaleel McLaughlin to dress him, to play him, it would be a team like Cincinnati that he had the game he had last year with. But I think what's probably behind that is they need to get Harvey and Dobbins going. Like, as much as this game is a must win and maybe you can take some things from the previous matchup, things that worked, ultimately this is about the bigger picture. And that the Broncos are behind in their progress. They're not where they thought they would be at this point. So the fact that Jaleel McLaughlin had a good game last year against the Bengals doesn't really matter to Sean Payton because his run game hasn't even truly blossomed yet. And we think that's supposed to be the identity of this team. So no Jaleel McLaughlin, no former Falcon Jordan Jackson. He is inactive. Savion Jones, the LSU pick from this year's draft, will be dressed for the first time. And Marvin Mims, active tonight. Dealing with a hip issue, but he will play. Make your fantasy and plays and bets accordingly. That game kicks off at 6:15. Expected to start on time. Both teams. I'm watching ESPN right now, looking at Troy Aikman, looking around Troy Aikman and seeing players on the field. Had a lightning delay earlier that kept the teams from taking the field. Broncos minus 7.5 is the line. Given the reaction to last night's game, let's hope this doesn't end in a tie because football fans are not okay with a tie. I thought last night, I thought it was fine. Maybe that's the soccer guy in me. But like any time when the switchbacks tie, I'm a little bit conflicted about the whole thing. But I mean, that was an entertaining game. And I'm okay with ties during the regular season. I just am. I don't like the shootout in hockey, but I get it. Football, the American sport, we don't do ties, all that kind of stuff. That's fine. It's an entertaining game. And a tie is supposed to make you feel conflicted. Now, if you feel like it's a waste of time, that's a different subject entirely. I'm just saying you're not supposed to feel great about either team. Jerry Jones looked at that like a win. And can we be done? I think we need to be done with the what we compare a tie to. Like, I've used it before, maybe because I don't have a sister, so it doesn't hit home for me. But like it was brought up so much. Jerry Jones was asked about kissing his sister, and Dak Prescott was asked about kissing his sister, and Jordan Love. It's like, okay, no. You can make like the joke on like sports talk radio or the TV broadcast or tweet it out. But when the players and coaches and in Jerry Jones's case, owners, they're all bringing up the kissing your sister thing. It's like, okay, it may have jumped the shark. We may need to be done with this. But the point is, you should feel conflicted after a tie. I don't feel like my evening was ruined, like it was a waste. I thought it was an extremely entertaining football game. And I think a tie in many ways was a fitting end to that game, because neither team could stop the other one. Now, if there's a team that should be a little bit more concerned with last night's result, it's definitely Green Bay. But Dallas, that's what they are. Their defense can't stop an old lady from crossing the street, and the offense is still, even without CeeDee Lamb, quite dynamic. But this is Cowboys football, and it's going to be this way all year. With Green Bay, it's like, man, with everything going into that game, like you got to hold up your end of the bargain of the Micah Parsons revenge game. I thought it was a fitting end. Tied. I didn't feel like either team was better than the other one. I mean, I'm even looking right now at the stats for Jordan Love and Dak Prescott. They're almost identical. Dak Prescott doesn't have a running back, so he had to run in a touchdown. He doesn't have Josh Jacobs. I'm all right. And it doesn't happen that much. I guess if it was a persistent, if ties happened, like imagine if hockey would eliminate the shootout, how many ties we would have. If it got to that level with the NFL, I suppose that I'd start going, yeah, I really don't like these. But the once in a great while, and especially with the way that game played out last night, I was okay with the tie. Would it be too much of a bold prediction to say that tonight's game between the Bengals and the Broncos will not end in a tie? I don't think that's a bold take. Somebody's going to win. Broncos need to. I suppose in Cincinnati, they're saying that. I think for Cincinnati, it's just a don't be as bad as you were a week ago. But for the Broncos, they can't lose. They cannot. Because now you're staring a short week against the Super Bowl champions. They'll be begging to go to London if they lose tonight and then play the Eagles on Sunday. They'll be begging. They'll want to leave for London from Philadelphia. That game kicking off just after 6 o'clock. Coming up next here on Extra Sports 1300, it'll be the other Monday night game between Miami and the Jets. I don't make the schedule. But I do have power over telling you about Low T Center. Guys, if you've been feeling off, maybe you're tired, unmotivated, not quite yourself, it might not just be because you're aging. Could be low testosterone, and Synergenics and Low T Center are here to help. Real patients, I've heard from them. Got my energy back, crushing at the gym. My relationship feels brand new. It can elevate your mood. It really is life-changing in the best way possible. But you got to go in, you got to get tested. It's a simple blood test. 15, 20 minutes later, you'll know for sure. That's what it starts with. And then after that, if you do need testosterone replacement therapy, know that it can help restore your drive, your focus, and your confidence. If you've been thinking about it, don't think about it, do it. Go to trtmvp.com and book your appointment now. That's trtmvp.com. Enjoy the games. Talk to you about them tomorrow.